When you try to learn a new language, the grammar textbooks always feel like these giant, dusty instruction manuals, right? Like they're for a spaceship or something.
Oh, absolutely. They usually read like mathematical equations, noun plus verb plus modifier. I mean, it's no wonder people get overwhelmed before they even open their mouths.
Totally. You're just staring at rigid formulas that seem, well, completely divorced from how actual human beings speak. But what if we completely threw out the textbook today?
I am always a fan of throwing out the textbook. What's the plan?
Well, what if instead of a math equation, you pictured a kitchen pantry?
A kitchen pantry. Okay, I'm with you. Walk me through it.
So, think about the physical reality of a pantry. You open the doors, and you immediately see two vastly different types of things. On one shelf, you've got your solids, right? Your apples, your eggs, maybe a bag of potatoes.
Right, things you can just grab.
Exactly. Things you can pick up one by one with your bare hands. But then on another shelf, you've got your liquids and your powders. You've got a jug of water, a carton of milk, a massive bag of loose sugar.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And when you're cooking, you don't pause to consult a rule book about how to handle them. You instinctively grab a measuring cup for the sugar, but you just reach out and grab 3 apples.
Because you literally cannot pick up a single isolated sugar with your bare hands. I mean, unless you have incredibly tiny fingers and like a ridiculous amount of patience.
You right?
Your brain instantly recognizes that a powder or a liquid requires a container.
And that instinct, that immediate physical understanding of how to handle different ingredients is exactly what we are applying to English grammar today. Welcome to the deep dive.
I love this analogy already.
Glad you like it. So we are taking a look at a set of sources specifically designed to decode English expressions of quantity for absolute beginners. We are talking about the words that dictate amounts. Words like much, many, some, any, a few, and a little.
Which happen to be the exact words that make language learners want to pull their hair out.
Oh, totally.
When you just look at them on a flashcard, the rules dictating when to use much versus many seem completely arbitrary.
They really do feel like a coin toss when you're first learning. But our mission today is to pull out the conversational cheat sheet hidden in these sources.
Right. We want you, the person listening right now, to navigate how much and how many by relying on that pantry instinct.
Exactly. Once you understand the physical reality of the words you're using, grabbing the right grammatical measuring cup just becomes second nature.
But to get to that instinctual level, we have to look at the ingredients themselves. Before we can measure anything out, we have to understand the most fundamental divide in English vocabulary.
The big split.
Yeah, linguists call this the split between count nouns and non-count nouns.
Let's lay the foundation here, because this is where the pantry analogy really takes off. What is the actual difference in how English treats a count noun versus a non-count noun?
It really comes down to how the English language perceives physical boundaries. So count nouns are things that we can easily separate into individual distinct units. They have clear border.
The solids on our shelf?
Exactly. You can point to them one by one, and because of that built-in separation, you can attach a number directly to them, and you can make them plural.
Let's actually run through the daily practice list provided in our sources. It's a great exercise to visualize these everyday items and categorize them mentally.
It really is. So for the countables, think about an apple or 2 apples, an egg or 4 eggs, books, chairs, cups.
Girls, kilos, photos, tourists.
Right. You can have 1 tourist asking for directions, or you can have 50 tourists standing in a plaza taking photos. You can walk up and tap each one on the shoulder.
The separation is obvious. But then we cross the aisle to the non-count nouns.
And the language treats these entirely differently because they lack those clear physical boundaries. They exist as a mass, a fluid, or just a broad, overarching concept.
Like the liquids and powders.
Yes. The source list includes things like water, sugar, milk, music, dishwashing liquid, butter, and help. Oh, and money.
Wait, I have to stop you there. Anyone listening to this is probably yelling at their dashboard right now.
I had a feeling you were going to catch that.
Because there is one word on that non-count list that drives people crazy. Money. The source explicitly categorizes money as a non-count noun. But I check my bank account, I count my cash. I mean, I am counting money all the time.
It's the ultimate trap for beginners, but it perfectly illustrates the deep logic of English grammar. Think about the physical act of counting your cash. When you pull out your wallet, what words are you actually saying out loud?
I'm just counting the bills.
But you never say, I have 1 money, 2 monies, 3 monies.
Well, no, I'd say I have a $5 bill, or I have 20 euros, or I just have a pocket full of coins.
Notice what you just did there. You counted the dollars, the euros, and the coins. Those specific words, dollar, euro, coin, are count nouns. They're the linguistic containers.
Oh, wow.
But the word money itself represents the abstract, unmeasurable concept of wealth. It is a mass noun.
Oh, I see. It's exactly like the water. I can't just say, hand me 2 waters. I mean, unless I'm performing a miracle that physically doesn't make sense, I'm forced to use a container to measure the mass.
Exactly. The logic dictates that you borrow a countable container to measure the uncountable mass. So you say 2 bottles of water or 2 glasses of water. The bottles and glasses are countable, solid units.
But the water inside remains an unmeasurable fluid.
You got it.
So whenever I'm dealing with a non-count noun, if I want to put a specific number on it, I have to hunt down its container first.
Yes, exactly.
Like if I'm baking, I can't ask for 3 butters. I have to ask for 3 sticks of butter or 3 pats of butter.
You are putting the mass into a discrete bordered unit so your brain can count it.
But let me push back on this a little bit, because language is always evolving, right? Take music, which is on the non-count list.
Okay, sure.
If I open Spotify, I can literally see my play count for a song. Doesn't technology change how we count these things?
That's a fascinating edge case, actually. But even there, the rule holds firm. When you look at Spotify, you aren't counting musics. You are counting streams, or you're counting tracks or songs.
Ah,
Those are the modern digital containers. The music itself, the audio experience, is still treated by the language as a flowing mass.
that completely shifts how you view everyday vocabulary. Okay, so we have our pantry sorted. We know how to recognize the distinct units and the fluid masses.
Yep, the foundation is set.
What happens when we want to express that we have a massive amount of something? Because the rules seem to change abruptly when we want to talk about extremes.
They do, and this is where we run into the infamous pairing of much and many. If you want to talk about a large quantity, the language forces you to check whether you're pulling from the count shelf or the non-count shelf.
Right.
The overarching rule the sources give us is that much and many are primarily deployed in questions and negative sentences.
So we use them when we are asking if a big amount exists, or we are stating outright that a big amount does not exist.
Exactly. And the division between them is strict. Much pairs exclusively with our non-count nouns, the masses and liquids. For example, asking, how much money do you have? Or stating a negative, like, there isn't much milk left. You cannot separate the milk, so it gets much.
And many takes the count nouns.
Right. Many handles the individual units. How many people were at the party? Or, I didn't take many photos on vacation. People and photos have clear boundaries. They're separable, so they take many.
Our sources highlight that this specific division is where beginners make the most glaring errors. I mean, it's the equivalent of reaching for a measuring cup to scoop up an apple. It feels deeply awkward to a native speaker.
Yeah, the errors are highly predictable.
Huh?
A classic mistake we see in the text is a learner saying, she has many money.
Because in their head, they are visualizing the physical dollar bills, which they know they can count.
Exactly. But grammatically, they've selected the mass noun. So the language demands, she has much money. Although, again, native speakers usually reserve much for the negative, like she doesn't have much money.
That makes sense.
Another jarring error the source points out is someone saying, I don't have much friends.
Much friends. Oof. Yeah, that one physically grates on the ear.
But think about the cognitive dissonance happening there. Native speakers intuitively know that friends are individual, autonomous people. When you say much friends, you are linguistically treating human beings like a liquid or a powder.
You're melting them into a mass.
Yes,
Yeah.
the brain rejects it. It has to be, I don't have many friends.
I never really thought about it like that, that using the wrong quantity expression actually changes the physical nature of the word in the listener's mind.
It totally does.
So if I'm a beginner, or even just someone mid-conversation, and I'm staring at a word like tourists or butter, and my mind goes completely blank.
The dreaded grammar panic.
Right. If I suddenly panic and can't remember if it's count or non-count, am I just stuck?
Not at all. This is where the sources introduce what I consider the absolute best tool for any language learner. It's the grammatical wildcard.
Yes. The sources give us a brilliant cheat code here with the phrases a lot and lots of.
The beauty of a lot and lots of is that they completely bypass the count versus non-count rule. They work flawlessly with both categories.
It's the ultimate conversational safety net. If you are walking the grammatical tightrope and you stumble, you throw down a lot of And it catches you every single time.
You really do. You can look at a giant puddle of milk and say, there's a lot of milk. And you can look at a crowded room and say, I have lots of friends here. Both are entirely correct, incredibly natural, and require zero mental calculation about physical boundaries.
But why does English allow that loophole? I mean, if it's so strict about much and many, why does a lot get a free pass?
Historically, a lot referred to a portion or a batch of something. And when you talk about a batch, it doesn't really matter if it's a batch of individual items or a batch of liquid. The focus is simply on the large volume.
So the language just allows it to cover both bases.
Exactly.
And the sources confirm we can use the safety net for questions and negatives too. Like, are there lots of tourists in your country? Works perfectly. Or there isn't a lot of butter, but there's enough. You don't have to pause the conversation to do mental grammar math,
It significantly lowers the stakes of speaking. It just keeps the conversation moving.
which is really the goal. Now, we have the safety net for massive amounts, but realistically, I'm rarely talking about massive extremes. I'm usually just asking a neighbor to borrow a tiny bit of sugar or wondering if there's any coffee left.
Everyday life is usually about the smaller stuff.
Right. How does the language shift when the stakes and the amounts are lower?
The mechanics change slightly. For everyday, smaller quantities, we rely constantly on 4 little words: some, any, a few, and a little.
Let's tackle some versus any first. The sources lay out a pretty clear baseline rule for these two based on the tone of the sentence.
Yeah, the tone is everything here. Some is the default for positive affirmative sentences. If the thing exists and you are stating that fact, you use some, like, I'd like some sugar.
Positive existence equals some.
Right. Now, any steps onto the stage when things get negative or when you are asking a question about existence. If you are doubting something is there or denying it entirely, use any, is there any sugar in this coffee? Or we don't have any dishwashing liquid.
Okay. But if any is strictly for questions, there is a massive social trap here for a beginner.
Oh, you noticed that too.
Yeah. Say I go to a dinner party and dessert is taking a while. If I follow the rules strictly, I would lean over and ask the host, can I have any cake? Because it's a question, right?
And that is exactly where the rigid textbook rule shatters against the reality of human interaction. For offers and requests, English breaks its own rule. You must use some.
So I have to ask, can I have some cake? Or would you like some soda?
Yeah, because the grammar is actually doing social work here. Think about the psychology of a request. When you offer someone cake or you ask for a slice, you are anticipating a positive answer.
You're assuming there is cake.
Exactly. You are assuming the cake exists and that everyone is happy to share it. Using some injects that positive affirmative energy right into the question.
That makes total sense. If I sit at a table and ask, is there any cake? The implication is that I doubt there's cake. I'm subtly telling the host I think their party is under-catered. It sounds super suspicious.
It sounds almost accusatory. By using some, you maintain the polite fiction that the positive outcome is already guaranteed.
So the polite exception is all about assuming the yes. Okay, what about when we want to get slightly more specific about having a small amount? That brings us to a few and a little.
Both of these expressions mean some, but they emphasize that the quantity is small. To use them, we just have to march right back to our pantry shelves.
Back to the solids and the liquids.
You got it. A few is strictly for the count nouns, those solid items with clear borders. There are few eggs left, but not many. Or I have a few friends in New York. You can theoretically count the eggs and the friends.
I could have put a number on them, but I'm choosing to keep it small and vague.
Right. And a little is the equivalent tool for our non-count nouns. She needs a little sugar for the recipe, or can you give me a little help? You cannot count sugar, and you cannot isolate a single unit of help, so you use a little.
A little help. That naturally leads into a crucial conversational tip from the sources. If your goal is to actually sound like a native speaker, the sources emphasize that English relies heavily on these approximate quantities.
It's a massive leap from intermediate to advanced fluency. Beginners often try to be far too mathematically precise. They want to inventory everything.
Like saying, I have exactly 3 friends coming over tonight, instead of just saying, I have a few friends coming over.
Exactly. And why does the vague version sound so much more natural to you?
Because conversation isn't an audit. When I hear someone say, I have exactly 3 friends coming over, it feels, I don't know, robotic.
Very robotic.
But when I use an approximation like a few or a little, I'm painting with watercolors instead of a sharp, hard pencil. The blurriness of a few friends actually makes the conversation flow better because it tells the listener they don't need to memorize the data. I'm just giving them the vibe of the evening.
The watercolor analogy is perfect. When you say a few friends, you are focusing on the social meaning of the quantity, that it's a small, intimate, manageable group. The exact math doesn't matter to the story you're telling. By using approximations, you signal to the listener what they should actually care about.
It's so liberating to realize that native fluency isn't about being perfectly precise. It's often about knowing how to be comfortably vague.
The watercolor approach is what gives spoken English its rhythm.
Looking at everything we've covered today, it's wild how much deeper this goes than just memorizing flashcards. We started by looking at how the language categorizes physical reality, sorting our words into distinct units we can count, and fluid masses that require containers.
We saw how that physical reality forces us to choose between much and many, and how treating a person like a mass noun creates actual cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, we found our ultimate safety net in a lot of letting us bypass the mental gymnastics entirely. We learned how grammar handles politeness, using some to assume a positive answer at a dinner party. And finally, we realized that putting down the sharp pencil and using the watercolors of a few and a little is the key to natural conversation.
The ultimate takeaway from these sources isn't just a list of rules to pass a test. It's the realization that using expressions of quantity correctly is about aligning with how the language perceives the world.
Right.
When you stop doing math in your head and start feeling the physical difference between a countable object and an uncountable mass, the language stops being a textbook and starts becoming a part of you.
It shifts from a formula to an instinct. But before we wrap up, there is one final provocative thought from the source material that I want to leave you with. We talked earlier about the non-count nouns, and there are two abstract concepts on that list that really stand out: music and help.
Right? These aren't physical liquids like milk or water. They are human experiences.
Exactly. Next time you are in a conversation, pay attention to the abstract concepts you are using and ask yourself this: how did the English language decide which parts of the human experience get to be neatly divided into countable pieces and which ones are just an infinite, unmeasurable mass?
That is a fascinating question.
For instance, we can count ideas one by one. I have one idea, you have two ideas. We can put them in distinct boxes. But help is treated as a vast, uncountable ocean. You can only ever ask for a little help.
Or think about knowledge. You can have a lot of facts, countable, distinct units of data. But knowledge itself is an uncountable mass. It just flows.
It completely changes how you view the vocabulary you use every day. Why do we slice some parts of our minds into little countable units while leaving others as boundless, infinite concepts?
It reveals that grammar isn't just a set of arbitrary rules. It's a reflection of how a culture organizes reality.
Exactly. The rules are the architecture of our thoughts. So the next time you open your grammatical pantry, remember that you aren't just choosing between a measuring cup and your bare hands. You are navigating the very way we measure and understand the human experience. Keep listening, keep questioning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.